I'm Oliver Bennett, and my life was a lie. I fell for Sophie in a Cornish chemistry lab, a teenage spark that led to a whirlwind marriage. Her smile hid secrets. While I served in the Royal Navy, she partied with my mates. I ignored the whispers, believing her tears. Our kids, Chloe and Lucas, kept me tethered to a crumbling dream. In Bristol, her late nights and cruel words tore me apart. I caught her texting, flirting, betraying me again. She called me paranoid. I called it truth. At 35, I filed for divorce, facing her rage and my fears. The truth unraveled: affairs, lies, a narcissist's game. I won custody, built a new home, and found purpose in engineering and art. Rachel, a friend turned love, showed me trust again. Sophie faded, leaving scars but not victory. My kids thrived. I rebuilt. I'm not just surviving, I'm living. This is my fight for freedom. Stay with us to see how my story ends, and don't forget to like and subscribe. I never thought I'd be the one to tell a story like this, but here I am, laying it all bare. My name is Oliver Bennett, and this is the story of how I broke free from a marriage that slowly drained the life out of me. It's not just about betrayal, it's about waking up, reclaiming myself, and learning that sometimes the hardest choices lead to the greatest freedom. I hope my words reach someone who needs to hear them, someone who's teetering on the edge of a decision they're too afraid to make. It all started in a small coastal town in Cornwall, where I grew up. I met Sophie in my junior year of secondary school, in a crowded chemistry lab. She was a year below me, confident and quick-witted, with a smile that could light up the room. We clicked instantly, passing notes and sneaking glances during experiments. We dated for a few months, but teenage love is fleeting, and we drifted apart after a silly argument about something I can't even remember. Life moved on. I finished school, unsure of my path, and ended up joining the Royal Navy, stationed in Portsmouth. The sea, the discipline, it felt like the right fit for a restless 18-year-old. 2 years into my service, Sophie reappeared. A random message on Instagram, a casual, "Hey, how's it going?" that turned into late-night chats. She was in university now, studying nursing, but she seemed just as drawn to me as I was to her. After months of talking, she came down to visit me in Portsmouth. Those few days were a whirlwind: sunset walks along the shore, her laughter mixing with the crash of waves. I was hooked. 4 months later, she told me she was pregnant. I proposed on a cliff overlooking the Solent, and we got married in a small registry office ceremony. Our daughter, Chloe, arrived soon after, and for a while, life felt like a dream. The first couple of years were golden. I was stationed in Portsmouth, and Sophie was an incredible mum. We rented a cozy flat near the base, and I'd come home to Chloe's giggles and Sophie's warm embrace. But cracks started to show during my 3rd year in the Navy. I was sent on a month-long training exercise in Scotland, leaving Sophie and Chloe behind. When I got back, my mate Harry, who'd been stationed with me, pulled me aside. His face was grim as he told me he'd heard rumors about Sophie and another bloke from our unit, James. Apparently, while I was gone, Sophie had been spending a lot of time at James's place, where a group of our friends often hung out. There'd been a party, booze, music, the usual, and word was, Sophie and James had gotten too close. I confronted her that night, my heart pounding. Sophie's eyes filled with tears as she swore it was a lie, that James was just a friend who'd been helping her feel less lonely while I was away. She said Harry was stirring drama, jealous of our happiness. I was 22, naive, and desperate to believe her. I didn't want to think the mother of my child could betray me. So, I bought her story, even though it meant cutting Harry out of my life. Looking back, I see how easily I let her manipulate me, but at the time, I just wanted to keep our family intact. We moved forward, or so I thought. After 4 years of service, I left the Navy with an honorable discharge, and we relocated to Bristol to be closer to Sophie's family. I landed a job as a logistics coordinator for a shipping company, a stable gig that kept me home. Sophie started working part-time as a nurse's aide. Our second child, Lucas, was born in 2016, and for a while, things seemed steady. But by 2018, the 5-year mark of our marriage, tension crept in. We bickered over money, parenting, little things that snowballed. I'd heard that 5 years was a rough patch for many couples, so I chalked it up to normal growing pains. One night, Sophie went out with her coworker, Emma, for drinks at a pub in the city center. She didn't come home until the next morning, claiming she'd crashed at Emma's place. I didn't think much of it until a week later, when I grabbed her phone to check the time while we were lounging on the sofa. A message popped up from Emma, and out of curiosity, I glanced at it. My stomach dropped as I read the words. "So you and that guy from the pub, you gonna tell Oliver?" I scrolled up, my hands shaking, and saw Sophie's response. "No way, it was just a dumb mistake. He doesn't need to know." I confronted her again, this time with evidence. She broke down, admitting she'd gotten drunk and kissed some random bloke at the pub. She swore it was a one-time thing, that she loved me and our kids. I was torn. Chloe was 4, Lucas was 2, and the thought of breaking up our family crushed me. Against my better judgment, we agreed to work through it. We went to a few counseling sessions, and I tried to rebuild trust. But deep down, I knew something had shifted. Fast forward to 2021. Sophie took a night shift job at a hospital to help with our finances. Almost immediately, I noticed changes in her. She became distant, snapping at me over small things. She'd call me lazy, useless, even though I was working full-time and handling most of the parenting while she slept during the day. Intimacy vanished. She'd brush off my attempts at affection with a coldness that stung. I started to feel like a ghost in my own home. One night, I caught her giggling at her phone, typing furiously. When I asked who she was talking to, she said it was just a co-worker, Daniel, who she claimed was just a friend, and not into women. I wanted to believe her, but late one night, I saw her Snapchatting with him, sending flirty messages and photos that made my blood boil. When I confronted her, she laughed it off, saying I was paranoid. But I knew better. The next few years were a slow unraveling. Sophie's behavior grew worse. She'd stay out late, claiming she was at work, but her stories didn't add up. I found receipts for dinners and drinks I knew she hadn't had with me. My self-esteem took a hit. I started to believe her insults, that I wasn't good enough, that I was lucky she stayed with me. But in 2023, something in me snapped. Chloe was 9, Lucas was 7, and I realized I didn't want them growing up thinking this was what love looked like. I deserved better, and so did they. I hired a solicitor and filed for divorce at 35, a decision that felt like jumping off a cliff. Sophie didn't take it well. She alternated between begging me to stay and hurling insults, calling me a failure, a coward. But I held firm. During the divorce proceedings, I learned the full extent of her betrayal. Friends came forward with stories I'd ignored or never known, affairs with coworkers, hookups during her girls' nights. She'd been living a double life, manipulating me to keep control while I raised our kids and paid the bills. My solicitor called her a textbook narcissist, and suddenly, everything made sense. The gaslighting, the blame shifting, the way she'd twist every argument to make me feel guilty, it was all calculated. The divorce was finalized in early 2024. I got primary custody of Chloe and Lucas, and we moved into a small house in a quiet Bristol suburb. It's not fancy, but it's ours. Sophie's still in the city, working at the hospital, but her visits with the kids are sporadic. I'm focused on being the dad they deserve, taking them to football matches, helping with homework, teaching them what it means to respect themselves and others. Since leaving Sophie, I've felt lighter, like I can breathe again. I joined a local rambling group and started connecting with people online, sharing my story on forums like Reddit. The support has been incredible, strangers offering advice, sharing their own escapes from toxic relationships. I've learned that people like Sophie don't change. They'll say whatever you want to hear to keep you hooked, but it's all a lie. I wasted over a decade of my life trying to fix something that was broken from the start, but I'm still young. At 35, I have time to rebuild, to find someone who values me, who sees me for who I am. The first few months after the divorce were a blur of adjustment. Chloe and Lucas were resilient, but I could see the confusion in their eyes when Sophie missed another weekend visit. I made it my mission to keep their lives as stable as possible. We established routines: Friday pizza nights, Sunday walks in the nearby woods, and bedtime stories where I do silly voices to make them laugh. Those moments became my anchor, reminding me why I'd fought so hard to break free. Work kept me busy, but it wasn't fulfilling. The logistics job paid the bills, but I felt like I was just going through the motions. One evening, while scrolling through Reddit, I stumbled across a thread about career changes in your 30s. People shared stories of leaving dead-end jobs to pursue passions they'd long buried. It got me thinking about my own dreams. Back in my Navy days, I'd loved tinkering with electronics, fixing radios and navigation systems. I'd even taken a few courses on circuitry before life got in the way. Maybe it wasn't too late to pivot. I enrolled in an evening course at a local college, studying electrical engineering. It was daunting at first, balancing work, parenting, and classes, but the challenge lit a spark in me. Chloe and Lucas would cheer me on, calling me Engineer Dad when I'd come home with my textbooks. The course introduced me to a new circle of people, including a classmate named Rachel. She was a single mom in her late 30s, with a sharp sense of humor and a no-nonsense attitude. We bonded over late-night study sessions and shared stories of navigating life after difficult relationships. Rachel wasn't like Sophie. She was grounded, kind, and fiercely independent. I wasn't looking for romance, but her presence made me realize I could open my heart again, someday. Meanwhile, Sophie's absence became more pronounced. She'd call the kids sporadically, promising visits that never materialized. One day, Chloe came home from school in tears, saying her mom had canceled another weekend at the last minute. I sat her down and explained, as gently as I could, that Sophie's choices weren't a reflection of her or Lucas's worth. It was a tough conversation, but it strengthened our bond. I started taking the kids to a family therapist, someone who could help them process their feelings. It wasn't a magic fix, but it gave them a safe space to express what they couldn't always say to me. As 2024 rolled into 2025, I started to see the fruits of my efforts. I finished my first year of the engineering course with top marks, and my tutor recommended me for an apprenticeship with a local tech firm. It was a pay cut from my logistics job, but the chance to work in a field I loved was worth it. I quit my old job and dove into the apprenticeship, learning to design circuits and troubleshoot systems. The work was challenging but rewarding, and for the first time in years, I felt like I was building something for myself. Rachel and I grew closer, but we kept things platonic. She'd been burned in the past too, and neither of us was in a rush to jump into anything. Instead, we became each other's support system. She'd bring her son, Max, over for playdates with Chloe and Lucas, and we'd all go on outings to the Bristol Zoo or the Clifton Suspension Bridge. Those days were filled with laughter, the kind that heals old wounds. I started to see a future where I wasn't defined by my past with Sophie, but by the life I was creating now. Sophie, meanwhile, seemed to spiral. I heard through mutual friends that she'd been fired from the hospital for missing shifts. She moved in with a new boyfriend, someone she'd met at a pub. But the relationship didn't last. Part of me felt sorry for her, but I'd learned the hard way that I couldn't save her. My priority was my kids, and I shielded them from her chaos as best I could. When she did show up, I kept interactions civil but firm, setting boundaries to protect our peace. One evening, as I was tucking Lucas into bed, he looked up at me and said, "Dad, are you happy now?" The question caught me off guard. I thought about it for a moment, then smiled. "Yeah, mate, I am. Are you?" He nodded, snuggling into his blanket. That moment felt like a milestone, a confirmation that I'd made the right choice. Chloe, too, was thriving. She joined the school's debate team and was blossoming into a confident young girl. Seeing my kids happy, despite everything, was worth every sleepless night and every hard decision. By mid-2025, I was settling into my new life. The apprenticeship was going well, and I'd started a small side project, building custom LED displays for local businesses. It was a creative outlet, something I'd never had time for during my marriage. Rachel and I were still friends, but there was a quiet understanding between us that something more might grow in time. I wasn't in a hurry. I'd learned to trust the process, to let life unfold naturally. Reflecting on my journey, I see how far I've come. I spent years trapped in a cycle of betrayal and self-doubt, believing I had to stay for the sake of my kids. But leaving Sophie wasn't just about escaping her, it was about choosing myself, about showing Chloe and Lucas what it means to live with integrity. I've learned that love isn't about control or manipulation, it's about mutual respect and honesty. I'm not perfect, and I've made mistakes, but I'm proud of the man I'm becoming. My story doesn't have a neat, storybook ending, but it's real, and it's mine. I'm 36 now, with a career I love, 2 incredible kids, and a heart that's open to new possibilities. To anyone reading this, feeling stuck in a relationship that's breaking you down, I want to say, you are enough. You deserve to be valued, to be seen. Don't let fear keep you in a cage. Take that first step, even if it's terrifying. Your kids, if you have them, will thank you for showing them what strength looks like. And one day, when you're ready, the right person will walk into your life, not to complete you, but to share the journey. Until then, keep fighting for yourself. Freedom is worth every moment of the struggle. As I sit here, typing these words in my quiet Bristol home, I hear Chloe and Lucas laughing in the next room, playing a board game. The sound fills me with gratitude. This is my life now, not perfect, but honest. And that's more than enough. The months that followed were a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. I dove deeper into my apprenticeship, learning the intricacies of circuit design and finding joy in solving complex problems. My mentor at the tech firm, a grizzled engineer named Tom, took me under his wing. He'd been through a messy divorce himself and understood the weight I carried. "Keep your head down and your heart open," he'd say, clapping me on the shoulder. His advice became a mantra, guiding me through long days and sleepless nights. Chloe and Lucas continued to grow, each in their own way. Chloe's debate team won a regional competition, and I was there in the audience, beaming with pride as she delivered a passionate speech about climate change. Lucas, quieter but just as bright, discovered a love for astronomy. We started stargazing in our garden, using a second-hand telescope I'd bought for his birthday. Those nights, lying on a blanket under the Bristol sky, talking about constellations and the universe, were some of the best moments of my life. They reminded me that family isn't about what you lose, it's about what you build. Sophie's presence in our lives remained erratic. She'd show up unannounced, sometimes apologetic, sometimes defiant, promising to be a better mom. But her promises were empty, and I learned to expect nothing. The kids, too, grew wary, their hope fading with each broken commitment. It was painful to watch, but the therapist helped us navigate it. She taught me to focus on what I could control, being a steady, loving dad, and let go of what I couldn't. Slowly, I stopped feeling guilty for Sophie's choices. Rachel became a bigger part of our lives. Her son, Max, was a year older than Chloe, and the three kids got along like siblings. We'd take them on weekend adventures, hiking in the Mendip Hills, exploring the Roman baths in Bath, or just having picnics by the Avon. Rachel had a way of making everything feel effortless, her laughter infectious. One day, as we watched the kids chase each other through a park, she turned to me and said, "You're doing all right, you know. Better than all right." It wasn't a grand declaration, but coming from her, it meant the world. My side project with the LED displays started to take off. A local cafe commissioned me to create a custom sign, and soon, word spread. I set up a small workshop in my garage, spending evenings soldering and programming. It wasn't just about the money, though that helped. It was about creating something tangible, something that was mine. Chloe and Lucas would sneak in to help, their curiosity sparking my own. I started dreaming of turning it into a proper business, maybe even hiring an apprentice of my own one day. By late 2025, I was in the final stretch of my apprenticeship. Tom pulled me aside one day and offered me a full-time position at the firm, starting the following year. It came with a raise and the chance to lead my own projects. I accepted on the spot, feeling a surge of pride I hadn't known in years. That night, I took the kids out for ice cream to celebrate, and we ended up at the harborside, watching the boats bob in the twilight. Lucas pointed out a constellation, and Chloe teased him for being a space nerd. I just sat there, soaking it all in, grateful for the life we built. Rachel and I finally crossed the line from friendship to something more. It wasn't a dramatic moment, no grand gestures or confessions. It happened quietly, over coffee at her place, when she reached for my hand and didn't let go. We took it slow, mindful of our kids and our pasts, but being with her felt right. She wasn't Sophie, she didn't need to control or manipulate. She was my partner, my equal, and that made all the difference. Sophie's life, from what I heard, continued to unravel. She moved to London with another boyfriend, but the kids rarely heard from her. I stopped trying to understand her choices and focused on shielding Chloe and Lucas from the fallout. The therapist suggested writing letters to Sophie, letters we'd never send, as a way to process their anger and sadness. I wrote one too, pouring out years of hurt and betrayal. I burned it in the garden, watching the ashes float away, and felt a weight lift. I was done carrying her chaos. As 2026 approached, I started planning for the future. I enrolled in a business course to learn how to scale my LED project, and Rachel offered to help with the marketing side. We dreamed of blending our lives more fully, maybe a bigger house, space for all three kids, a place where we could grow together. But we weren't in a rush. We'd both learned the value of patience, of building something solid. One winter evening, I took Chloe and Lucas to Cornwall, back to the coastal town where I'd grown up. We walked the cliffs where I'd proposed to Sophie all those years ago. The wind was sharp, the sea wild, but I felt calm. I told the kids about my journey, not the details of Sophie's betrayal, but the lessons I'd learned about resilience, about choosing yourself. Chloe hugged me, her eyes bright with tears, and Lucas said, "You're the best dad." It was enough. More than enough. My story isn't over. There will be challenges ahead: parenting, work, love, life. But I'm not the man I was at 22, naive and desperate to please. I'm Oliver Bennett, father, engineer, survivor. I've learned that freedom isn't just about leaving, it's about building, growing, becoming. I've got my kids, my dreams, and a heart that's still beating, still hoping. To anyone out there, trapped in a life that's breaking you, hear this: you are enough. You are worth fighting for. Take the leap, hold your kids tight. And trust that the path ahead, however rocky, will lead you home. The years that followed were a mosaic of triumphs and setbacks, each one shaping me into someone I was proud to be. By 2027, my LED business, which I'd named Beacon Designs, had grown beyond my garage. A local arts festival featured one of my installations, a swirling display of lights that danced to music, and it caught the eye of a Bristol gallery owner. She commissioned a larger piece for an exhibition, and suddenly, I was juggling client meetings with my day job at the tech firm. It was exhausting but exhilarating, like rediscovering a part of myself I'd buried long ago. Chloe and Lucas were growing fast. Chloe, now 12, was a force of nature, debate captain, aspiring environmentalist, and fiercely protective of her younger brother. Lucas, at 10, had his head in the stars, devouring books about black holes and begging for a more powerful telescope. I saved up and surprised him with one for Christmas, and we spent New Year's Eve on a hill outside Bristol, spotting Jupiter's moons. Those moments, small as they were, felt like victories, proof that I was giving them the childhood they deserved. Rachel's role in our lives deepened. Max, her son, was a lanky teenager now, all sarcasm and skateboard tricks, but he adored Chloe and Lucas. The three of them formed a tight-knit trio, bickering and laughing like true siblings. Rachel and I moved in together in 2028, renting a rambling old house on the outskirts of Bristol. It had a big garden, perfect for stargazing, and a shed I converted into a workshop for Beacon Designs. Merging our families wasn't seamless. There were arguments over chores, screen time, and whose turn it was to pick the movie, but it felt right, like puzzle pieces finally clicking. Sophie's absence became a fact of life. She'd send the kids birthday cards, always late, with scribbled promises of visits that never happened. I stopped expecting her to change, and so did Chloe and Lucas. The therapist helped them find closure, encouraging them to focus on the family we built. Rachel stepped into their lives not as a replacement but as a steady presence, someone who showed up. She'd braid Chloe's hair before debate tournaments and cheer Lucas on at his first astronomy club meeting. I'd catch her watching them with a quiet pride, and it hit me how lucky we were to have her. My career took unexpected turns. The tech firm promoted me to project lead, trusting me with bigger contracts, including a government deal to upgrade coastal navigation systems. It felt like a nod to my Navy days, a chance to reconnect with the sea. Meanwhile, Beacon Designs became a local success. I hired a part-time assistant, a young artist named Lily, who brought fresh ideas to my installations. Rachel, true to her word, handled the marketing, building a website and securing gigs at festivals across the Southwest. We were a team, balancing our day jobs, my business, and our blended family. But life wasn't without its storms. In 2029, Sophie resurfaced, claiming she'd turned her life around. She wanted more time with Chloe and Lucas, even threatening legal action. I was skeptical, but the kids, now teenagers, wanted to give her a chance. We agreed to supervised visits, and for a few months, it seemed like she might follow through. She took them to the cinema, bought them ice cream, told stories of her new job in London. But then she vanished again, leaving Chloe furious and Lucas quiet. I hated seeing them hurt, but I was proud of how they bounced back. Chloe channeled her anger into a school project about family dynamics, while Lucas wrote a story about an astronaut who finds a new home among the stars. Their resilience inspired me to keep going. Rachel and I faced our own challenges. Blending families meant navigating ex-partners, teenage drama, and the occasional clash over parenting styles. We argued sometimes, about money, time, whose turn it was to cook, but we always talked it out. She taught me that love isn't about perfection, it's about showing up, even when it's hard. One night, after a particularly tough day, she pulled me into the garden and handed me a beer. "We're doing this, Oliver," she said, clinking her bottle against mine. "Messy, crazy, but we're doing it." I kissed her under the stars, grateful for her strength. By 2030, Beacon Designs was thriving. We landed a contract to create an interactive light display for Bristol's Harbourside, a project that put us on the map. The launch was a chilly spring evening, with hundreds of people gathered to watch. Chloe, Lucas, Max, and Rachel stood beside me as the lights came to life, swirling in patterns that reflected the city's history: waves for the sea, spirals for the bridges, bursts for the festivals. The crowd cheered, and Lucas whispered, "Dad, you made that." I hugged him tight, feeling like I'd finally found my place. The kids were growing into themselves. Chloe, at 15, was applying for a summer program with an environmental group, dreaming of studying marine biology. Lucas, 13, joined a national astronomy competition, presenting a project on exoplanets that earned him a scholarship. Max, now 16, was teaching himself to code, and we'd spend evenings in the workshop, blending his programs with my lights. Rachel and I supported them every step of the way, from late-night study sessions to cheering at their events. We weren't perfect parents, but we were present, and that made all the difference. Sophie's final chapter came in 2031. She called me out of the blue, sounding broken. She'd lost her job, her relationship, her stability. She asked to see the kids, but I left the decision to them. Chloe, ever pragmatic, said she'd meet her but didn't expect much. Lucas declined, saying he was done hoping. Their maturity floored me. The meeting with Chloe was brief: a coffee shop, an hour of stilted conversation. Sophie promised to stay in touch, but we never heard from her again. I worried for Chloe, but she shrugged it off. "I've got you, Rachel, Lucas, and Max," she said. "That's my family." I hugged her, my heart full. Rachel and I got married in 2032, a small ceremony in our garden with the kids, a few friends, and a lot of laughter. Chloe gave a speech that left everyone in tears, calling us the team that never quits. Lucas and Max set up a light display in the trees, a surprise they'd worked on with me in secret. As Rachel and I danced under the glowing branches, I thought about the boy I'd been at 22, so desperate to hold on to a failing marriage. I'd come so far, not because I was fearless, but because I'd kept going, one step at a time. The years that followed were a tapestry of life's highs and lows. Beacon Designs expanded, with contracts in London, Cardiff, and even a festival in Edinburgh. I hired more staff, including Lily as a full-time designer, and Rachel took on a bigger role, turning our passion into a legacy. The kids grew up. Chloe headed to university, studying marine biology as she dreamed, while Lucas pursued astrophysics, his eyes still on the stars. Max launched a tech startup, and we became his first investors, proud to see him soar. Rachel and I grew older, our hair flecked with gray, but our bond only deepened. We traveled when we could: Cornwall, the Scottish Highlands, even a trip to Iceland to see the Northern Lights, a bucket list moment for Lucas. We faced challenges: health scares, business hiccups, the ache of watching our kids leave the nest, but we faced them together. Our home remained a haven, filled with memories of late-night talks, impromptu dance parties, and the hum of my workshop. Looking back, I see my journey as a map of scars and stars. The scars are from Sophie's betrayal, the years I lost to her lies, the pain of watching my kids navigate her absence. But the stars, those are the moments that saved me. Chloe's laughter, Lucas's wonder, Rachel's steady hand in mine. The lights I built, the life I reclaimed, the man I became. I'm 45 now, and my story is still unfolding. There will be more chapters, more challenges, more love. But I'm ready. To anyone reading this, trapped in a relationship that's breaking your spirit, listen to me. You are enough. You are worth every fight, every tear, every step toward freedom. Don't wait another day to choose yourself. Hold your kids close, if you have them, and show them what courage looks like. The road ahead won't be easy, but it will be yours. And one day, when you're standing in the life you've built, surrounded by people who see you, you'll know it was worth it. Keep going. The stars are waiting.